And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Looking at tonight's weather, we've got this washing out front here coming across the eastern Bering Sea, holding together a little better here to the north, so I'll bring increasing chances of rain to St. Lawrence Island. High pressure in advance of that dries it out, keeps it dry over the southwest part of the state, actually all the way up into the NOAA Valley there, western Brooks Range, with some clearing, especially Kodiak Island with some gusty northwest winds and diminishing showers. Actually, rain changing to showers later this evening, south central Alaska, and then those should start to end after midnight toward morning, lingering along the Alaska Range here and up over the mid and upper Tanana Valley. And this low, not moving too fast, still just south, actually edging eastward a little bit there, but still close enough to keep a lot of rain in along the North Gulf Coast into the Panhandle. That front moves through, so it'll stay wet though with that next trough coming right onto the coastline after maybe a little bit of a break this evening or late this afternoon and this evening. Then for tomorrow, this low edges eastward, southwest flow keeps surges of moisture rolling into the southeast coast. Scattered showers up over the eastern interior, slowly diminishing through the day, but not completely ending from the eastern Alaska Range up toward the Yukon River there around Eagle. And look for partly sunny skies in the afternoon, south central Alaska, maybe the Prince William Sound area, possibly late. Mostly sunny Kodiak Island, nice conditions there, as well as the western interior with some weak high pressure moving in. And this front, the remnants of it, brings a chance of some moisture to the Yukon Delta coast, Nunivak Island, Pribilofs, and even to a lesser extent there for the Alaska Peninsula. And then out to the west here, we've got kind of a developing next front pushes eastward here, and this system here developing tracks northeastward and deepens, drops about 22 millibars from the position here tomorrow afternoon to Saturday afternoon to this position, and that's going to put good full gale right into the southwest coast here with rain pushing eastward quite rapidly, kind of timing a little difficult here, but look for a downturn in conditions south central Alaska during the afternoon hours, with the rain hopefully holding off until evening, but may spread into the southern inlet in the afternoon. Otherwise dry in the east, dry in the north, rain Kuskokwim Valley westward out to the southwest coast, and breezy for the Aleutians, but dry with some clearing as most of the shower activity stays up to the north. And for the southeast coast, a drier day coming up for Saturday, first day of the weekend, not looking too bad as most of the moisture moves off into Canada. This trailing trough here may kick off or keep some showers going down over the southern areas, but dry up to the north. And for the coastal water forecasts on the south coast, southwest winds at 20 knots. Otherwise, for the central and north coast, we've got southerly winds 15 to 20 knots. Lynn Canal, south winds at 10 knots, southeast 15 for Stevens Passage, northwest at 10 for Clarence Strait. And then for Saturday, we've got west to northwest winds at 10 knots, pretty light here all along the coast, with northwest at 10 for the central coast, sea still running 6 to 7 feet. And up here to the north, variable winds 5 to 15 knots. Lynn Canal, light north winds for Stevens Passage, and light northwest winds for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, northwest winds at 15 knots for tomorrow. Variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the eastern North Gulf Coast, and northwest at 15 here on the west side there with about 5-foot seas. Gale warnings, Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands here, west-northwesterlies at 35 knots with 8 to 10-foot seas. West winds 20 knots southern Cook Inlet, north of the Forelands there, southwest at 10. And then on Saturday, small craft advisories for Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, southwest winds increasing to 25 knots in the afternoon. And for Cook Inlet, as the day wears on, a little bit of an increase in the winds, southeast 15 to 20 knots. And for the Prince William Sound zone there, we're looking at small craft advisories for the day Saturday. Southeast winds 25 knots, southeast 30 knots to the eastern North Gulf Coast, but only east at 20 for the west side. Kodiak Island, west winds 25 knots with higher gusts tomorrow, west at 20 for Bristol Bay. Alaska Peninsula, mostly southwest winds at 15 knots. And then for the day on Saturday, small craft advisories, Kodiak Island, west to south winds at 30 knots with seas up to 11 feet. And Small craft advisories and gale warnings for the Alaska Peninsula. Southwest winds 30 to 35 knots here, strongest on the Pacific side, with seas up to 11 feet. Small craft advisories for Bristol Bay, south winds at 25 knots. And then from about, say, Perryville here eastward to Sitkinak, look for south winds at 40 knots with 11-foot seas. And the eastern Aleutians for Friday, south to southwest winds 25 to 35 knots. And south winds 35 knots for Adak and Atka with 8 to 10-foot seas. And then for the western Aleutians, south winds 25 to 30 knots. And for Saturday, we've got gale warnings for the western Aleutians here for west-southwest winds at 30 to 35 knots. Southwest at 30 knots for Adak and Atka. Gale warnings for the eastern Aleutians, southwest winds 35 knots, seas 12 feet. And for the southwest coast, south winds for tomorrow 15 to 20 knots, south 20 for St. Lawrence Island, 15 knots for Norton Sound, and the Pribilof Islands, St. Matthew Island, south winds at 20 knots with 7 to 8 foot seas. Then for Saturday, 40-knot winds here along the Kuskokwim Delta coast, seas up to 9 feet. Gale warnings for the Yukon Delta coast, south winds increasing to 35 knots, and southwest at 30 knots for the Pribilof Islands, seas 11 feet, southwest at 20 for St. Matthew Island, and east winds at 30 knots there for St. Lawrence Island, same thing for Norton Sound. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, we've got east winds 20 to 25 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas, east winds of 15 knots for the central coast, a little lighter there on the west side in the Chukchi Sea, pretty light winds out of the south and southeast at 10 knots, and seas no more than 2 feet. For Saturday, the Chukchi Sea, we're looking at east to southeast winds 20 to 25 knots. Western Arctic coast, east winds 15 to 20 knots. East winds at 15 knots for the central coast and 15 to 20 knots out of the east for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline.